Hi, thanks for coming to listen to our presentation. My name is Sarah Badran, and I am presenting this on behalf of my hardworking coworkers, Ahmed Kaffenmout and Maureen Strom. Our workshop is titled From Putting Out Fires to Lighting a Candle, and it's about leading through change. We came up with this topic because we felt it was particularly timely. There's a lot of change around us as a whole, particularly in academic centers, and maybe particularly super crazy in academic medical centers. And it's going to be important for academic leaders to be able to get themselves through these changes and to bring our people along with us safely and intact. Your team members, your peers, other people in your life, frankly. And we've learned a lot about it in our sessions. So we thought, well, how can we kind of bring all these thoughts together? So instead of it seeming that we learned 10 different concepts, we can sort of bring it together to a concise portion. So we decided it would probably be a good idea to describe this universal change curve, because it seems like it kind of always looks the same, but we're going to specifically focus on Jellison's curve, or the J curve, and we want our learners to be able to describe the stages of the J curve at the end of the session. The second part of the session, we would want to introduce Kotter's stages of change, and then specifically apply them to the J curve, partly to make the point that, they're really still talking about the same thing. And then the third portion would be to then say, well, now that we know what the change curve looks like and we have some idea of how great leaders like Kotter would manage that, what are the best leadership styles and when would be the best time to apply each style to that curve? This is our timeline. So we'd have 0 to 8 minutes here at the beginning of just introductions, an icebreaker, get them all riled up, maybe excited, maybe upset, so that they realize what we're talking about and how change is so important and how it makes people feel. The next minutes from 9 to 20 would be a general session where we're going to describe the J curve, explain why it's shaped the way it is, maybe related a little bit to other curves, and then have a little bit of a brainstorming session of how people think they might want to lead through the curve. Following that, we'll break into small groups and then start with, again, this is the J curve, introduce Kotter's stages, and hopefully they would have read that article the day before, and then use that period in the small groups to describe Kotter stages and then start applying those 8 stages to the J curve. The third part of the session, between minutes 36 to 48, we would come back to the main room and introduce the idea of, now that we have a curve and we kind of know how we want to manage it, what are the leadership styles out there that you know of, and which styles would you use during which parts of the curve management? And then at the end, a few minutes for commitment to act, write down a few words, and evaluate the session. This is a little YouTube video of me doing a search, but I figure let me just do it because that's easier. So if I was to Google change curve, gosh, look what's already coming up. Valley of Despair, Kubler-Ross model, stages, emotions, and then look, pages of stuff. So, and it's not just medical stuff. Change management, business change, organizational change, personal change, road design, grief, spiral, highway engineering, holy cow, rail, bridge. Oh, now we're getting into John Fisher. Oh, I said other people. Anyway, but all these curves, look what they have in common. They start off kind of high, go down into the abyss, and then come up again. And people get pretty creative with how they're describing these curves of change. I mean, this one's got kind of happy people, and then confused people, and then freaking out people, and then really sad people, and then happy people. This one has funny faces. Shocked, angry, sad, happy. So this is sort of almost a universal shape no matter who is writing it, and they're pretty creative with it, but honestly, the shape doesn't change. So we chose to use specifically the, not jelly bean, Jellison curve, okay? And you can see it kind of follows that same idea that you start off somewhere, you go down before you go up again. So let me go back to our PowerPoint now. Okay. So in the real session, we would spend, again, about 10 minutes describing this. I'm not going to go over it with you guys again. You already know it. But we'll talk about how things are status quo. During any sort of change process, there's a drop in performance, probably in happiness as well. And then you come up and gradually find relief at a higher plateau, better than where you started off. And this curve has pretty much been described as I just showed you a billion times. So after we describe this, we would then go into our small groups with this curve picture. And so let's sort of model that now. Okay, break into your small rooms. It's not working. Okay, it's working. It's not working. It's working. It's not working. Okay. Okay. Hi, everybody. Okay, who's in my group? Okay, I'm Sarah. Lindsay. Hi, Lindsay. Hi. Okay, who else is in this group? Oh, hi, Fred. Hello. And who's the last person? Oh, Haley. Hi, Haley. Okay. So we've just talked about this curve, and I know part of your homework was to think about a change that you're having at work. You don't necessarily have to share it with us here, but feel free to if you want to. And there was also a very short reading of the 8 stages of change as described by Kotter, right? And so I'm going to summarize that article for you here. We're going to summarize it together and see how Kotter applies to this curve, okay? Does anybody, can anybody tell me one of Kotter's stages or one that particularly struck you as important?
Well, he started off, hi, this is Lindsay. He started off by talking about how important it was to establish a sense of urgency because complacency means you're happy, status quo, there's no need to change anything, and you really have to get people sort of riled up and understand that they can't just sit around because something terrible might happen if they don't change.
Excellent. Yeah, that's absolutely the first thing, was to create a sense of urgency for the exact reasons that you said. What else? Yeah, Fred? Well, you have to have a vision. You have to have a vision. You have to be able to communicate the vision. If you're not able to see where you're going, you're obviously not going to bring anybody along with you. Absolutely. That's probably, well, I suppose it was listed as third, but yeah, there it is. Forming a strategic vision. You have to know where you're going. You have to be able to see where you're going. And if you're the blind leading the blind, that's obviously a bad idea. So good point. Build a guiding coalition is another one of his stages. In that stage, you're kind of getting your posse together. You like-minded people, the people that were going to get through the specific training and really understand the nitty-gritty and really understand the details of why this stage is necessary to help you, rally the troops, have enough people on the ground to, you got their back, they got your back, everything's covered. And this coalition, you really can't do anything without it. You can't do it by yourself. You'll never get off the ground. Enlisting a volunteer army, I mean, that's not quite like building a coalition, right? I mean,
No, absolutely not. I mean, it's not really an army, obviously. It's just a matter of foot soldiers. So you have your guiding coalition is a little bit of the, your fellow leaders or, people with the inside story. And not everybody like needs to understand exactly why, all these changes are happening. But you need enough people on the ground that believe in you as a leader to be able to follow along and, get the work done. Absolutely. The fifth stage he described as enabling action by removing barriers. So we know that people are not going to enjoy the change, so please make their life as easy as possible if you can. And while you're at it, you're trying to motivate them, make them feel better, so generate short-term wins. Once you get it going, please sustain the acceleration. Don't lighten up. Don't declare victory too soon. Make sure that the change is sustainable and going somewhere before you give up. And hopefully you'll get to where you need to go. So these are Kotter's 8 stages. And let's see how well they fit with the J-curve. So look at that for a minute. And tell me what you think. Any thoughts? What could we do to get people off the plateau of complacency?
Well, as I just said, complacency is basically the opposite of urgency. And so if you really want people to not be complacent anymore, you have to, light a fire under their butt and make sure they understand that they could be like sitting on a volcano that's about to erupt. And they might think that they're safe, but they're really not safe at all.
Okay, creating a sense of urgency. I think that would be the right place to put that. Exactly. They're not going to be willing to follow you into an unknown unless there's a really good reason to. That's just human nature. What other thoughts do you have? What are the other stages of Kotter and where might they fit? Well, building a guiding coalition. I mean, you got to get your team together. You got to get the guys who believe in the vision and the ones who are going to support you through it, and make sure that you have enough belief in it and enough backup that you'll actually be able to follow through. So you have to get that going at the beginning. Yep, building a guiding coalition. Exactly. That again, you have to get that going before you even think about, maybe even talking about the change, right? You can't start talking about it in public and arguing about it and then hoping you can sort of backtrack. So this is the kind of stuff you're going to start doing even before you're officially, letting it known that this is something that's going to happen. What else is there?
Well, of course, the vision is really important. We just talked about that. I mean, if you don't know where you're going, you can't bring people along with you. And so, yep, exactly. You have to form a strategic vision. Make sure you can communicate it well. There's a lot of details in that if you read the book about, being able to communicate the vision concisely and in a short amount of time and clearly. Because if people can't see what you're seeing, then there is no real vision, right? And here are your people on the ground. You got to get your people ready. And so at this point you have enough, you have a vision. You have a bunch of people who are agreeing to come along, or at least agreeing not to fight you. You have a bunch of people that are pretty much at your level of commitment in your guiding coalition that are supposed to walk the walk and talk the talk and carry this vision with you, and you're ready, right? So once you've started and things are starting to go bad, though, the last thing you want is for everybody to try to run back up that cliff, right? So what are you going to do to help people through the bad times? Well,
you already put it up there, but there it says enable action by removing barriers, and obviously do what you can to make it easier for them. So, if there's like some stupid red tape or bureaucratic stuff, you can maybe get rid of that, maybe improve the infrastructure, kind of just do what you can to make things a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just that. If you're really trying to motivate them, and so I would think that at the very least, maybe try to give them a bonus or a little bit of money and keep them motivated. You generating short-term wins, of course, that you might not have any. Like, what if you haven't gotten anything yet? I mean, if just because you won a little tiny bit of something doesn't mean you're actually going to win, and you don't want to give them the wrong impression and then they stop trying.
Well, that's true, but people really do need to be motivated, and so I'm sorry. I mean, it's maybe it's a little bit of a different culture, but I think it's super important to keep people engaged in just little things, like just keep them a little bit, show them that there's light at the end of the tunnel and there's a little bit of hope.
Yeah, I think that is really what generating short-term wins means. You almost fabricate it. I mean, you maybe find a little bit of positive and exaggerate it just a tiny bit, right? You don't want really people wallowing in that very desperate, hopeless stage, and you don't want the company to shut down. So, yeah, you're gonna do that is the 6th stage, and then once you're on the way to wellness, if things are starting to pick up, you want to sustain that momentum and keep things going. And hopefully eventually get to change. And so I would say this is a fair way to perhaps apply the Kotter stages to the change curve. Of course, in real life, we'd have much more discussion with much more normal people. I'm sorry, that was just my fake version of it. But anyway, once we're done with that, we would then leave the small room, go to the big room again. And it would be basically, hi, everybody. So you just went through this. How did that go? Blah, blah, blah. And then the conversation would turn to the next topic of leadership. So now that we've had an opportunity to study the J curve and see how we might apply Kotter's stages to that, and you guys are all leaders with various leadership styles and leadership tools, let's see if we can figure out how you in your own institution might be able to actually carry this out. So let's brainstorm here a little bit about what leadership styles do you know? You can think of yourself, think of one of your role models, maybe think of somebody you hate that's a terrible leader. Not all leadership styles are good.
Well, I mean, for something like leading change, I mean, if you're literally asking people to jump off a cliff and, change their whole life and learn a new skill and do something they're really not comfortable with, I would think you would really need to use the commanding style. That would definitely be what we would work with. I mean, with the surgical mindset, it was very hierarchical. If something just needs to get done, we just say we're going to do it and it's going to get done. And that's how we would proceed.
I don't really agree. I think that people really would rather be encouraged. I don't think people are going to want to listen to you if you really try to push them that way. I think you need to encourage them, make sure that they feel safe and secure, and
I don't think you could ever make anybody feel safe, honestly, by telling them they're going to just, completely have their life turned around.
Well, it's a little more complicated than any of it. I mean, sometimes you might need to be a little bit commanding, obviously, if it's very urgent, like you don't want people to die because you're trying to come up with a consensus.
Okay, well, those are all, important styles. Let's see what we have here so far. So visionary, we can at least agree that definitely a vision is needed. Well, yeah, of course. Yeah, okay, so this I put this, look, it's so visionary you can't even read it. I had to translate it. But you have to have a vision, and you have to be able to sell the vision and get people sold on it and communicate it well. So we can at least agree about that one right away. What else do we have here? Pace setting. What's that?
Oh yeah, that's the one I was trying to think about. That's when you're like, oh come on, we gotta hurry. We don't have all day. You can't spend months and months and years on trying to convince people because it might be too late at that point, and you're just left in the dust. So yeah, absolutely. That's that. I couldn't remember the name for it.
Up, and there's Fred's commanding style. But we all need to use that a little bit. It depends on who you're talking to, what are the circumstances, how urgent things are. I mean, all of you have a preferred style, I'm sure, but then you're going to pick out certain ones based on the circumstances, right? Democratic style. I don't know how much time you're going to have to be voting and collaborating and discussing at the beginning, but at least with your guiding coalition, this is going to be an important feature, I would think, right? And at some point, really, for people to have buy-in, they probably need to feel involved and that they have a stake in this and that they have a voice. Affiliative. What is an affiliative style?
Well, that's what I was talking about earlier. Like, you really have to make sure people understand that you care about them and that you're really trying to do what's best for them and you're not trying to hurt them. And an affiliative style, I think, is probably going to be more motivating than most others. Well, these are definitely these types of leadership styles are a little bit what's the word I'm trying to think of? Well, just kinder. I mean, that's what we would do in pediatrics. I mean, it's definitely going to be an affiliative style. We're going to talk about it. We're going to collaborate.
I just don't think you can, use that for everything. And
well, okay, so that's true. But but other than affiliates, is there anything else? I think there's one more. Yeah, coaching.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, like that's got us through sports as a kid. I mean, when things are going rough, you need somebody to tell you just one more mile, it's just 5 more steps. And so absolutely, that's probably the most important one when you're going through something like this, I would think.
Okay, well, let's get back to our curve here. This is where we left it. So we had our little change curve. We're okay. We're like, oh, I'm gonna die. Oh no. Yay, light at the end of the tunnel. I'm happy again. Okay, and we talked a little bit about how we're going to stick Kotter's stages on this as well. Make sure that we get rid of the complacency and that it's urgent. Get the coalition going. The vision believed in. So what are we going to do? What kind of leaders are we going to do? What would you do in this circumstance? How are you going to get people off the plateau of complacency?
Well, I think just by encouraging people and being super nice and just really explaining that this is really an important thing to do.
Again, if you don't have a vision, nobody's going to follow you. So you have to have a clear vision and be able to communicate it properly. So I would say visionary is the number one thing you need to worry about. And I see how, you can use your affiliative style to make people feel cared about, but just because they love you doesn't mean they're going to follow you if they don't know where they're going.
Well, I want to put in there too that pace setting is really going to be important at this stage. It's urgent. You can't just sit around and wait for the volcano to explode or the tsunami to hit you. You got to move quickly, and so a pace setting style is going to be particularly important at this part.
Okay, well, we have visionary on there. Absolutely. If you don't have a vision, then you are not leading anybody anywhere that makes any sense, right? You do need to set a relatively quick pace. That kind of goes with a sense of urgency. You are going to have to command some people. Some people, no matter what, are going to be a little bit too afraid. And honestly, even commanding them, that doesn't mean they're going to be happy following, but if there's real danger of something imploding, then you might have to be a little tougher. But for other people, it's all about coaxing them along, and you do need an affiliative style to get them to sign on and take this leap with you. So anyway, we would do the rest of the session like this, take them through the coaching, pace setting, affiliate of down here in the Valley of Despair to try to get them up, coach them up, the ascent of pain, use your democratic skills there, affiliate of again, and of course that you need your vision the whole time and especially at the end to make sure that people, that it's reinforced what they've done, they get credit, they feel part of it, and that you have your future vision already up and running so that the curve doesn't start going backwards. And hopefully with all of these, you can see how we can perhaps coax people along with us along this change curve. So that's basically our session. Here's a slide to describe the post-session evaluation, Kirkpatrick levels 1 and 2. What did you learn that would be useful to you? I learned something that would be useful to me, and then agreed or disagree. Right, what's something you learned? What might you do differently? Do you understand better Jellison's 5 stages of change? And do you feel better able to manage change? And then write an essay in 3 months about Kotter stages of change, how it applies to your program, what your leadership style did for you and how you managed this, and whether you actually were able to implement something in your program and change things. And here are our references. And thank you very much for your attention.